Okay, so what I'm going to talk through here is just the engagement, student engagement things that I've developed, and to show you some of the very basic things, interactions, and some of the quiz formats that I've done. And this is really just to give you an idea of what's possible and how easy it can be. So you might find that I open and close various programs and jump around screens rather than just a straight presentation, but it's really just an introduction to give you the confidence to try some of these things and maybe design curriculum elements to fit a blended learning format. So what we've got is really things that we want out of students in order for them to engage. So obviously we want them to read their notes, we want them to know where things are, so things need to be accessible to them. We want them to show up rather than think that they can just download whatever document is online or get the notes from a video or whatever it might be. So whatever you design, it needs to have ways of ensuring that the students show up and do the activities and engage with the activities, as much of that as possible. We want them to, like I say, engage with things rather than just show up. We don't want them to come to, in my case for the science programs, science modules I run, we don't want them to show up and just go through the recipe, go through the protocol. We want them to come along and ask, why are we doing this? What's the reason for this happening? How do I do that? That sort of thing. The problem, of course, is a lot of things, particularly in higher education, is there are big gaps in between. So they have a lecture and then a week goes by before they have the practical that helps put into context what they've learned in the lecture. And it's keeping them engaged throughout the process rather than treating things as separate lecture topics. So the way that we use technology enhanced learning here at UE, or at least the most basic level of it, is using Blackboard, which is our virtual learning environment. You may use Moodle, but I believe you do. There are a whole range to be useful. Blackboard actually now owns Moodle, so a lot of the features that I'll go over in Blackboard can also apply to Moodle, but they might look slightly different, or there might be a slightly different way of you getting to them. Now, what Blackboard is this beautiful sort of arrangement of files, sensible organization system presented very nicely, easy for students to engage with, go to what they need, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, in a lot of cases with people, it's this dumping ground for files. It's just a repository of stuff. Everyone does things their own way. So when designing a blended learning program, or even a component of blended learning within a program, within a course, you need to think about a way that fits everybody. Don't make it overly complicated. Don't make it too simple. Don't give people, academic staff, teaching staff, don't give them too much freedom. You don't want to restrain anybody, but you don't want to let people just do their own thing, because everything will end up very discombobulated. So you need to think like the students. When you get sent tons of emails, you get bombarded with messages, links, SharePoint, shared files, website links. So do you want to be able to find something easy? Do you want to know what you're looking at and why you're looking at it? So why is this picture up here? Why have I been given this video? What is this protocol for? What is this skill I need to learn? Do you find that you Google everything rather than using your own college website to find information? And do you feel like your executive staff, managers, school heads of school, do you find that would you like them to care about you, to care about what you're doing, to value your opinion and care about how your work is going? And that's the kind of thing you need to have for the students. Main, of course, do you enjoy reading endless bullet points? If you don't, this is an example of a really bad teaching slide. Okay, if it's something they can read a book, they can Google information. You want them to engage and interact with your slides, and this is what I'm going to go over. So this is an example of how I organize my virtual learning environment, my Blackboard page for my module Anatomy and Physiology, which is a level 1 module for first year undergraduate students. So it has a pleasant welcome. There's a color-coded menu here over on the left-hand side of the screen here. And then there's this welcome video, and this tells the students a little bit about the module, about the kind of coursework, and it gives them a face to put to the name. So if you're doing even 10% of your course online, you want the students taking that course, even if they're there most of the time, when they're engaging with the online stuff, if they're out on placements or workplaces, anything like that, you want them to know there is someone in the background that cares about them, is engaging with them, is replying to emails. They want a face and a name to put to that, so this video really helps. This is an example of a web page that I sort of created within Blackboard in order to it was a web layout really, just of links and things like that, which is more complicated to do. And this is an example of making something where other staff might not be able to really follow you with it. Therefore, we have more simple structures. I arrange things by semesters. So semester 1, learning materials, I have a folder on the topic. Within that folder are the lectures, the quizzes, whatever it is related to that topic, so students can see a picture of the staff member, so they know who's going to be giving them that lecture, or who the lecturer that they read and interact with online is going to be by. And then there's all the stuff associated, whether it's a handout, a quiz, all in one place, so they don't get mixed up. And obviously organised in chronological order, rather than by, I put my thing up most recently, therefore it's at the top, that sort of thing. So when you're designing interactive lectures, you want them to learn. You don't want them to memorize. You want them to understand the processes. You don't want them to learn keywords just so that they can pass, because otherwise, and trust me on this, I'm finding it this year, they will get to university and they will find things very, very difficult. If they are learning to pass, the gap between A-level and university becomes massive. If they're learning because they want to know, then that gap shortens and they'll find that transition into university a lot easier, if in fact they are going on to university to do something. What you also want to have in this is audio snippets. So if you're not there, you need to mimic things as much as possible in order to make it seem like you are there. This is where having buttons to press, things to interact with, and what I tend to do is if it's a slide that in the live lecture I would have gone over for a couple of minutes just to explain things a little bit more. I might have had an anecdote that helps explain it more clearly than a bullet point or an animation would do. I add that to the interactive lecture after the fact. It's just an audio clip they can click on. I'll show you how to do that. You want to have something to do, and you want to be thinking throughout by little multiple choice questions or things to click on. So ask a question when you think you know the answer, click on the thing, reveal the answer. So here's an example of an interactive slide. So this is talking about prone and supine, so lying on your back or lying on your front. Here the figure says to click me, and see how on the screen it's a cursor, but when I move it over the figure, so where there's something to engage with, it turns into a little hand. So we click on the figure and he goes onto his back, and that demonstrates this is what that position is, and it gives a little bit of information. Click on him again, there's the opposing term, prone, for forward or inclined towards. At this point, this button has now appeared saying click me. So again, they're thinking about things rather than just reading whatever's on the slide and then going to the next one. Gives them a little bit more information. The button has now changed color and saying click me again. That means there's something else to do. Button disappears and a question appears. So now they've had a bit of information. They should know a little bit more about what prone and supine are. So now I've asked them a question and I want them to guess which one it is. Well, I want them to know which one it is. If they click, so consider the term used when you are someone who often has little accidents. So the answer is going to be accident prone. Okay. Which term best applies? If I click supine, incorrect. If I click prone, correct. Now all that was a couple of layers. One is a more 3D looking rectangle or rounded rectangle. The one behind it is a flat rectangle, and the animation is just that one disappears on the click of it. That's all it is, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Another example here is the axial and appendicular skeleton. If you click axial, a duplicate image of just the axial skeleton appears, and it's purple, and it fades in so it looks like the skeleton behind is actually turning purple, and it gives a minor bit of information about it. If you click appendicular, same thing happens again, but in this case there's an additional animation for the axial skeleton to fade out, and this is just a toggle, and again it's using triggers within PowerPoint. This is all within PowerPoint because it's something that all teachers, all academic staff can have and are expected to use, so you want to make things easily done. I also use formative assessment throughout the whole semester, throughout the academic year. And I do this by having quizzes associated with each lecture that just asks random questions about things that I hope they've learned during the lecture. They can do them as many times as they like. The grades don't go anywhere. You can have them sent to an email, and it's using something called iSpring. There's iSpring Quizmaker and there's iSpring Converter. Now iSpring Converter is what I use to convert my lectures to technically unrippable, undownloadable, unmessaboutable Flash and HTML5 based presentations that have interactions built into them. So it's not a video that you just watch, but it's not a PowerPoint that you just download or a PDF that you just download. It's an online resource. It works on tablets, phones, Apple, PC, Android, everything. And they can interact with it and they can do the quizzes in the same way. I can, however, set the quizzes so that the grade does go somewhere, so I can use them in summative assessments. And hopefully, in talking with me later on, you will, and by emailing me or whatever, you may come up with ways that you want to test students and test their knowledge and their understanding, and maybe ways of incorporating SciSpring. So you can download the free trial of this and play about with it, and you can publish the quizzes online or just open them as files and go through them that way. It's got various types of questions such as matching pairs, putting things in the correct order, so say order of bones from the rib cage going out to the arm, and then my favorite kind, which is this one here, which is the spot question. So you click on the image and a little hotspot appears and you have to drag it to where you think the correct place is. So the question here is identify the Korokode process by clicking on the image and dragging the hotspot to the correct location. So you would drag it to where you think the Korokode process is, down here. Click submit, tells you if you're right or wrong. These are useful for students to learn what their strengths and weaknesses are. What areas do I need to focus on more? What areas do I need to do I not need to worry about so much? So when I'm doing revision, can I tailor my revision that way? What do I need to wake up more to in class? What skill is it that I need to work on in the workshop or in the salon or whatever it might be by doing quizzes? So you can have write in the answer, word bank, multiple choice. There's all kinds of questions possible. The fear, of course. Fear is quite healthy for them. It's just a day. My students know I can see scores, particularly when we go to Grade Center in Blackboard, which is what we've got up here. They know I can see when they've been on Blackboard, what they've been looking at. They know that I know when they say, I've been reading the lectures, but I'm just not getting it, because I can tell when they've been on there. So they to mess with it. If attendance goes down in lectures, then I will, no, I can do conditional access. So I think opening the lecture online only if you pass a short quiz based on the previous lecture. So you at least have to have come to the previous lecture in order to answer that quiz in order to access the next lecture. Okay, so it's a way of ensuring that they're engaging with some parts if they miss the one or they can't be bothered. So it's almost little penalties, which is quite handy. The tricky, of course, is that it's a blend. It's online learning. It's in-class learning. It is a blended learning process. What we're doing with the blended, when they're not there and they're having they feel like part of the cohort, whether that's through blogs or discussion groups. It's whatever. It's up to you to tailor your virtual learning environment, the links you provide, the videos you provide them to the course that you're designing. What helps, of course, is to employ Lazy's law. So if someone, so an example would be this. This might sound to some people like an absolute nightmare. You know, I don't have the time to do this. It's a huge amount of learning. That's sort of the way I felt about making a lot of stuff until someone said, "Oh, can you do this?" Really sounds like a huge fact. There's got to be an easier way. So I came up with all these interactions. I came up with a way of changing my assessment that I'll go on to in a moment to ensure that students engage with it all year, but I don't have to mark anything. I set it up at the beginning. I don't have to do anything all year. It's very, very simple. The trick to think of is a little bit of effort up front saves you a huge amount of effort later on. You don't want to be chasing your lines all the time. And of course, you have to engage with them. These are headshots of a lot of my students from last year. I know the names and faces of pretty much all of these students. I learn them throughout the year. They understand that I care. When I do the register in class, I guess their names for a few weeks and I work out their names. I learn the short versions of their names. I ask them what they prefer to be called. I find out things about them. I ask them questions. They respond to me better by me engaging with them. So what I'm going to show you now is very basic ways of creating interactions. And what I will do here is I'll show you what we have with the skeleton. Okay, so if I open the animation tab and show you the animations that have been going on, okay. So this is using PowerPoint 2010. 2013 is far more intuitive and interactive to use, and I have that on my work desktop. So what we've got here are all the animations that are part of this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is create a small animation. So we just make a shape. And I'm going to make a button. Okay. So I'm going to make a button that reveals something. So we've got a flat rounded rectangle, and we'll call it B. I'll make that, and then I can copy that over, by doing Control C and Control V, which I'm sure many people know. Change the text to that one. There you go. So just by doing copy and paste, I've already reduced the time. I haven't made a new box and typed a whole new thing. I've just changed the text a little bit. Now, if I copy those again, lay them over one another, a little bit better, and I format, and I'm then going to make these, let's make them yellowy, and more 3D. So now they look like a button. And here, I will do, it doesn't really matter what it is. It would be, you know, question A, question B, or correct and incorrect on the underboxes, whatever it might be. There we go. Now, what I'm going to do is make the top box for question A disappear when I click on it. Okay. So for that, we go to Animation. I've got the custom animation panel open here. I'm going to add an effect, and that's going to be an exit because it's already there. Okay. The answer button or the answer box is underneath. I want the question box to disappear. So I'm going to have that be to do a fade or a wipe. Okay, so nice and simple. If I can find it, of course. There we go, fade out. You get an idea of what it's going to do. All right. Now, I want to make the clicking on the box, make it happen, not clicking anywhere randomly. So we go to Effect Options and Timing, and there's this trigger thing here. So I want the animation to start on effect of clicking the actual trigger. So that would be question. There we go. Okay. So now when I preview this, it should be, assuming I chose the right one. I chose question A and moved to question B. So by clicking on question B, that fades away. What I should have done is obviously chosen the right trigger, which would reveal question B. But see how clicking that button but clicking anywhere else just makes the slide advance. Okay. That's a simple button. You can have that be for anything at all. So, for example, with the axial and appendicular skeleton, the animation for the purple. There we go. So I've dragged away the base skeleton, which sits on the top, so you can't see it. For the purple to appear, which would be this guy here, the trigger for it is just the axial skeleton. Okay. So the animation for appear, so that's picture 2 just here. We go to Timing, Triggers, Effect of, Rounded Rectangle 9 with the width seal on it. Okay. Therefore, clicking on that makes it appear. And that's all it is, nice and simple. If I want that to disappear, I click the appendicular button, I would make the appendicular button a trigger for picture 2 to disappear, and for the main skeleton to disappear, therefore revealing just the green skeleton. Okay, and that will appear over the top of the skeleton. So ordering your layers is very important. There are a range of YouTube videos online. I've done some longer ones on how to make these interactions. So a lot more detail, a lot more step by step. So if you search for Chris Moore Tell or CP Moore on YouTube, you should find my channel with a bunch of screencasts like this showing you how to do very specific things. I'm very quickly going to show you my continuous online assessment. This is a way that I've developed assessment for level 1 to get the students to interact all year. The basis of it is I wanted students to come to practicals, which often students don't because they think they're only going to be tested on lectures, and I wanted them to interact and engage with the practicals rather than just do them and then leave the lab. I also wanted them to be looking at their notes all year round rather than just towards revision time when exams are coming up, and I want them to want to know more stuff. So what I've done is create a series of conditional access, like I was saying, by making a lecture only available if you've passed the quiz. I've done the same thing with a whole bunch of mini assessments. So, and this is quite a sort of complex structure. They have a lecture on a Wednesday, and that's a 2-hour lecture. This year it's actually 3 hours, and with that they have it from 9 till midday. At midday, Blackboard automatically makes available through time release, so I've said appear on this date at this time, a 5-question pre-practical quiz that is based on the lecture they just had. They go and do that, and they must do it before the following Monday, because the following Monday is when the first practical of that week happens. And there are 4 repeat practicals throughout the week, and depending on the student's timetable, they'll be in one of those sessions. On doing the pre-practical video, a score goes into the grade centre. By that score going into the grade centre, regardless of what it was, a video becomes available that front loads them with some information about the practical they're going to do. The idea behind that is I want them to come to the practical at least vaguely aware of what the point of the day is going to be and what I expect them to do in that lab. So that's called the pre-practical video. Both of those disappear at 9:30 on that following Monday morning. So they're from Wednesday at midday to Monday morning 9:30 to do a 5-question quiz based on the lecture to assess that, to make sure that they understand what the lecture was about, because it's going to inform the practical, and they watch a video so that they know what the practical is going to involve. They then do their practical, and I take a register throughout the week, and like I said, I do it by going around and talking to them, and rather than just ticking off names. At the end of the week, which is 2 o'clock on the Friday, which is when the last practical group has been, all the names of the registers go onto a group on Blackboard, because you can create groups of people, which might be because you want them to all, 50 of 100 students to be in one discussion group and 50 to do another. In this case, it's a register list. Being in that group, using what's called adaptive release on Blackboard, it allows them access to a post-practical quiz. Now, the post-practical quiz is 10 questions based on the practical that's been done, and it's to demonstrate their understanding of what they did, the skills that they picked up. Could they replicate that practical? Could they do it again if asked to? Now, the reason that you have to be in the group to do that is you need to have done the practical to answer the questions. That's the point of it. Therefore, I don't want people that didn't come to the practical being able to get marks for not having engaged with the material, okay, and with the actual activity that we did, the experiment. So you do that, and if you get 4 out of 10, so 40%, that grade goes to the grade centre. Actually, whatever grade you got goes to the grade centre. But if it's 40% or higher, that through adaptive release allows you access to the 5th task. And the 5th task varies. It might be a branch scenario. It might be to create a graph and upload it just so I know that you've interpreted the data correctly. It might be a video to watch with some questions at the end, just to give them a bit more learning. It could be anything like that, okay? Something on the pathology of whatever we've done. And you get a mark for that as well. They do this for every fortnight, so for every lecture practical combo, and they build them up throughout the year. There are 12 practicals, 9 of them are part of this assessment, and it's their best 8, so their highest scoring practical portfolios is what I'm calling them, that count towards their coursework grade. Now what this means is they show up to practicals because they know if they don't, they miss out on 3% of the module. So each bit is worth 1% of the module, totaling 40% of the module for that coursework. They engage with the practical because they know there's going to be a quiz associated with it afterwards. And if they haven't engaged, they'll score low on that. And if they score low on that, they can't do the 5th part. So it's a real conditional way. It's a carrot and stick way of getting them to engage throughout the year. It means they're reading their notes more often. It means they are taking better notes. It means they're paying attention to practicals and they're asking questions, and that's what I was aiming for. So I'm just going to show you very quickly some things in PowerPoint, in Blackboard, sorry, just to give you an idea of what adaptive release is. Okay. So I'm just logging into Blackboard now and down to my main level 1 module. So again, here is the video at the front, and this is what I can put up messages and things like that. Now the practical portfolio is where the coursework sits, and this is what it looks like. So it tells them the kinds of things they need to do each fortnight, and here is what the portfolio for the first week, which they can no longer see because it disappears at the end of that fortnight. Now what you can do, this is the pre-practical video, and you have drop-down menus next to things, and here is adaptive release, and this is the way that I add conditions to things. In this case, they have to, of course, do the quiz. Doesn't matter what grade they can get nothing, but as long as they've done it, in order to watch the video. So here I've got this content is visible only to those who have done the homeostasis pre-practical quiz, which is here, and they have to have got greater than or equal to 0. If they've got that, Grade Center records it and it opens up the video, and they can then watch the video. Okay, it's that kind of thing. Here we've got membership. So if they're part of the register for that homeostasis, so I would move that over to there. So you must be in that group in order to access the post-practical quiz. And it's all those kinds of things. So I know a lot of this seems quite complicated and faffy, but if you watch the YouTube videos, talk to your colleagues, just start to think of ways that you teach them in class at the moment, and how can we replicate those online? How can we make assessments easier to mark? Not easier to do, but how can we get students engaging with them more and automate some easier marking processes so that there's more time dedicated to marking essays, to make them less keyword dependent and more about actually understanding and demonstrating that understanding of the material. Portfolios, yeah, you can create them by having students upload blogs and videos and presentations. If they're doing a skill, maybe they can video themselves doing that skill, they upload it as a blog to the virtual learning environment. Other students can comment on it, but you can mark it. You can give feedback on that so that they understand where they went wrong, where they went right, what they can do better. A SWOT analysis, if you like. So strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, that's a good way to approach a lot of assessment. And there's lots of ways of doing that. So do experiment around. The only way I figured any of this stuff out, I'm not a tech person. I happen to be good at tech, but I'm not a programmer or an IT guru. I just learned by playing about with things. Okay, so that's that for now. And hopefully you found that useful. Do chat to me about it. And see you again soon. All right, goodbye. How's it going?